This is massive, a crumbling of society. But this is a criminal fraternity, right, that is going to take over our country. The problem for them is too big. The Starmer government is tearing apart the social fabric of our country. When that black economy gets that big, what it does is destroy legitimate companies. Under this government, I believe we are there. You have to be a near-on moron, delusional, and you can see it around you. They've done nothing about smashing the gangs. They haven't stopped the ballooning illegal immigrants in this country. The figures are shocking, and I'm going to raise that here and now.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Expresso. We're with Esther Mcvey, our very own Westminster Whisperer. Esther, things are heating up.
Yeah, temperatures are soaring, whether that's the weather or whether that is in politics, because Tony Blair has absolutely thrown a hand grenade into the Labour Party. He gave an eviscerating 5,600-page report about what he thought Starmer was getting wrong. And the key things, which we all know, tax is too high, unemployment is too high, energy bills are too high, and immigration is too high, all of which he laid at the feet of Starmer there, all of which he said you are turning a wrong direction. And do not think those local elections where you were absolutely pummeled by the public means that they want you to go faster and quicker and do more of it. No, they want you to stop and do a U-turn. But the absolute chutzpah of Tony Blair, because he is the man who did the open borders and let immigration rise. He is the man who started the net zero, which started in the early 2000s, which then Brown made an act in 2008. So he's realised it's wrong. I'm no fan of Tony Blair because I do think he planted the seeds of our current problems. I do think he's a constitutional vandal, whether that's about the Supreme Court or whether that is about quangos, which meant that politicians aren't really in charge. But he came in with that. And my big concern that I want to talk about today, which Blair alluded to, is our nation is weaker, it is poorer, and my concern now is the rise of the black market and the rise of the black economy that politicians deny. They want to look the other way. They say it isn't happening. Thank goodness for journalists and for the Express for walking down the high street, seeing all those vape shops, those barber shops, those nail shops. Politicians have looked the other way. Journalists are looking at it. I've taken it to politicians before, but now it is a major issue, and the Starmer government is tearing apart the social fabric of our country.
And we're going to get into the black economy, but it's worth saying we are also going to discuss the gossip on the ground in the Crunch Makerfield by-election at the end of this month.
Yes. Now, the black economy, and the reason I think it's so important, you need to understand how big can the black economy, and I'll also say the shadow economy, how big can it get for a civilized society to collapse? And there's no rule of thumb of what it should be, but people try and keep those two figures as close to zero as they can. Now, the latest figures, they say really at the moment are shadow economy, and that is basically people doing side hustles, not paying their tax, doing a job on the side. And they're saying now in the UK that's about 9 to 12%, worth about 200 billion, right? This is what people are admitting to. And the black economy, they are saying, is only 0.5 to 0.7%, about 10 billion. And I think this is way underestimated. But it is this government that has turbocharged absolutely everything that has got both of those economies growing. And what I will say, and this is the figure you can get a hold of, they say the breaking point and how big the black economy has got to get to is 5%. And when that black economy gets that big, what it does is destroy legitimate companies, destroy the infrastructure. It means that the money and the wealth of the criminals is bigger than it should be, and it's bigger than a country can sustain. And I am saying, under this government, I believe we are there. That's where I think we are.
And it also means that legitimate businesses can't compete either.
No, of course they can't compete because, right, so you've got a company, and that's why I'm going to break it down, and that's why I'm going to say that this government has turbocharged the conditions for that. So when taxes are too high, business rates are too high, employing people is too high, minimum wage has gone up, national insurance has gone up, how can somebody who's paying all those legitimately compete with somebody who's paying none of it? So if you think, and I looked up sort of a price of a small shop in, say, somewhere like Manchester, could be for business rates, rent, utilities, so say on average 48 grand a year, £48,000 a year, before you've even opened the doors. How are you actually going to, how are you going to compete there? So we're getting figures now saying, like illegal Britain is booming, but they're saying now there's 3 million unregistered businesses. There has been since 2010 250,000 increase in barbershops, nail shops, vaping shops.
And that'll be something that our viewers will absolutely have seen. We've all seen it. It's hard to miss it.
So when you walk down the shop and you look into there and you think, gosh, there seems to be no customers in there. They don't seem to be selling anything. So what I'm saying, how are they getting that 48 grand to pay the bills to have that shop? But now they're saying half of the number of vape shops and convenience stores are criminality. They're saying now 1 in 4 takeaways is probably involved in it, and they're also saying 1 in 3 American candy stores are. And then if you look at it, so you've got the rise in those businesses, and yet they're saying legitimate shops are possibly closing 37 a day. The latest figures I've got, that is huge. And pubs are now closing every other day. And this is because the government is trying to take too much money off legitimate businesses as they cannot cope. But there's another thing, and I looked at this today, because like I said, there's the shadow and there's the black economy. So there's people now saying, and I'll give you a couple of examples. They'll say, it just isn't worth me having a business. So say I'll give an example of a hairdresser, and this is true. They said, I've got to pay for not only the shop, I've got to pay for staff, and I've got to pay for the electricity. It is better if I go to somebody's house, have none of those costs, don't even use my own electricity. She or he might even wash their hair themselves. That's water, that's shampoo, everything gone. And I just charge them. They get the hair cut, whatever colour, cheaper.
Yeah.
I don't pay tax and I get it cheaper, and we both walk away happy. And that is the problem, and that is what Rachel Reeves does not understand. When people say it's not fair, we cannot afford, those prices are too high, we are impoverished as an individual and as a country, they will seep into the black economy, the shadow economy. Now, I am not in any way excusing it. I'm just saying I understand it, and you have to be a near-on moron, delusional, not to understand that this is going on, and you can see it around you.
Well, you've been raising this issue for years, but I want to put it to you. Do you think the government is in denial over the issue?
Oh, yes, they don't want to believe that. They don't want to believe. They think that you can still keep taxing businesses up to £68 billion and all will be fine. They will keep getting money in for their pet causes and all will be fine. And it isn't. So I'm going to give you another example. So it's businesses can't afford it and can't afford to survive. So illegal ones are coming in, not paying any of that. But an individual, like they'll say, I can get a cheaper haircut if it is on the side. But I'm going to ask you, because I was thinking about it, how much is a packet of cigarettes now?
I'm going to guess around £15.
Right. So you're in the region of £13.50 up to £19.50. But the ones most people will probably buy, so you'll go, your Silk Cut, your Marlboro Light, your B&H, they're going to be at about £19, something around there. 80% of that, 80, is tobacco duty and VAT. So they're saying, blummerneck, 11 to 16 quid of this packet of fags actually goes to the government, but I want to smoke. So I will find my way around that. And it will either be things like bringing them in from Poland, bringing them in from Turkey, and they might get them, I don't know, £5, £6, £9 a pack, considerably cheaper, or worse, they'll move to counterfeit. And those are really unhealthy ones, and you can make them for I think it's about 20p for a pack of 20. So people are saying, it is not fair. I am poorer and I don't agree with paying all that money. So you've pushed them down that road.
And on that point, though, it also is a double blow to the NHS because there's a good chance that the NHS will have to treat some of those people down the line.
Yeah, so you're getting really bad, whatever it is, cigarettes. So you're having to then give them sort of surgery, operation, medicines or what have you. But equally, you've not had the revenue, the tax that would have been paid to support those public sectors.
Right, a quick pause in the podcast to tell you about our sponsor, Incogni. You had those phone calls from numbers you don't recognise, or you go in your inbox and there's emails for stuff you did not sign up for. Well, that's because someone somewhere is selling your private information. That's where today's sponsor comes in, Incogni. They will contact these people who have been taking your information and they'll say, oi, stop, delete it. Go to the website, incogni.com, you type in the details, 2 minutes later, Incogni are sorting it out for you automatically. And because I love you, I've got you a discount. It ain't 10%, it ain't 20, 60% off. 60% off an annual Incogni plan. Just go to incogni.com/Daily Expresso or click the link in the episode description box below.
So there's a whole host of issues. And I've also got to raise, and I'm going to raise this here and now because Labour is absolutely in denial. We have illegal immigrants coming into our country at record numbers too. Well, where do you think they are working? Where do you think they are going?
And let me give you some stats on that. So illegal arrivals under Starmer has hit 73,000. Now, that is a third on your way to the size of the Sunderland, for instance, but it is the size of a small city.
Yeah, it's a size. So that is just since sort of July 2024.
Yep.
That's it. So what in the last week?
Just this week, I have that too. It is over 1,000, 1,128.
Yeah, and that's what we know. And they're coming into this country. So I've got information. Those people, some of them are finding their way into these illegal sort of shops, mini marts, barber shops, whatever, vaping shops within a week.
And even into Deliveroo and those food carriers and to your door.
So this government is dismantling the legal part of our country and growing the black market. And you can see why they don't want to see it's there. They want to look the other way because they've done nothing about smashing the gangs. They haven't stopped the ballooning illegal immigrants in this country who are working there. And what is worse, and the figures again are out today, youth unemployment that they're looking at has absolutely skyrocketed. We have got nearly 1 million young kids not in education or training. That's 1 in 8 young kids who don't know what they're going to do. What is their future going to be? Now, I'm not going to say all of those are going to go into the shadow sort of market and the shadow economy and they're going to go into the black economy, but some of them will. More of them will than might otherwise have, because now you've got online, you've got social media, you've got various things, all the things they can't afford that they'd want to. So, there is a temptation there.
Absolutely. And Alan Milburn, who did that big review, said earlier that there aren't enough entry-level jobs. But as you said, Labour is just adding fuel to that fire.
And I kind of think you've got to sort of look at this in, well, what are they going to do? And again, this goes back to what Tony Blair said. And he said, you've got to get the cost of employment down. You've got to get kids into work. And they're not doing any of that. And those who are going for the top job now at the Labour Party are also not looking to reverse any of those conditions. And that sort of is my sort of major sort of concern on that. And as I said, we are just in denial.
It seems so. So where do we go from here?
Well, where we go from here is, and it's going to be really, really difficult because I've said to, tax advisors, tax lawyers, tax accountants, they said, look, you've pushed away some of your your biggest businesses and some of your wealthiest people abroad. You're going to have to give them some sort of moratorium on tax to get them back into the country to start the business up. You're going to have to do that. And you're going to have to remove some of the unnecessary burden, regulation, the workers' rights from day one, all of these things that have stopped employment. You're going to have to stop all of that, because only by stopping that are you going to start building up the true economy, the legitimate economy. But I'm telling you, it's going to be really, really difficult. I'm just going to give you one last figure, and this is why I know the government are totally underestimating the size of the black economy. The UK, when in gambling, used to be one of the best in the world. Hardly had any of the black economy there, yeah? Now it's 1 in 10 bets are in the black economy, and that is set to double over the next couple of years. Why? Because you can just go online and you can bet straight away. And they've said the size of the black gambling economy globally is worth about 5.9 trillion. And if it were a country, it would be the third biggest in the world, just behind China and just behind America. So all I'm saying, a civilized society cannot work when its shadow and black economy is so big. I say we're at tipping point, and I say this Labour government is in denial. Every step they have taken has made it worse, and whoever becomes the leader, it seems to me, they're going to make it worse again.
And it's to the benefits of other countries like Turkey, where all these goods are coming in. But it does make me think, where is HMRC? Where is Border Force? Where is the NCA in all of this?
Well, I think, HMRC is saying, it's about 2 billion, 3 billion that they are losing for, say, cigarettes and alcohol. I don't believe that. I think they're way underestimating that. And it's a difficult one, maybe to do. But I was looking at, and I thought, if ever you needed a number, it's something like from 21 to 2024, the number of the sale of legitimate cigarettes have fallen by about 45% in this country. But the number of smokers has only fallen by 0.5%. HMRC, wake up, wake up. There are alarm bells there. And if you cannot see that is a rise of illegal, illicit, counterfeit cigarettes, then again, you're in the wrong job.
Absolutely. And the profit margin on counterfeit cigarettes must also be quite significant.
Yeah.
And also tell me a bit about ghost directors and or companies posing as legitimate with dodgy directors.
Well, I think there's about 3 million companies that are not registered, but equally it's easy to set up a company with a ghost director, either somebody that maybe you're paying to pretend, but actually you don't even need to get it to even pay anybody to pretend. You can go on Companies House and set up a very simple company, and there is hardly any checks on that. So we've got a lot of illegal companies posting as legitimate companies. And again, they know about that. I know I've raised the issue on that. People have started to receive post at their house for companies that they've never heard of. So what I meant is Companies House knows a lot of these are illegal. HMRC must know. The NCA, the National Crime Agency, now know. And like I said, the government knows because it has just let in like 78,000 illegal migrants, many of which are working in the black economy.
And the scale of this economy is huge. So if you think there are roles like babysitters and nannies and gardeners and house cleaners that are also falling prey, and consumers are falling prey.
Well, that's what I said. If you push a country to feel weaker and poorer, and that's the individuals who live here, they will find a way round to still be able to survive. And for some of these people, it is surviving. It is about making sure they can pay their bills, they can pay their mortgage, they can look after the kids, they can buy the food at the end of the week. So they're saying, how do I get around that? Because the government is unfairly taxing us. And whether that, again, is the energy prices, whether that's taxation, whether that's minimum wage, whatever it is, they are saying this government is not on our side. And therefore, we feel like we can legitimately do this because what they're doing to us is crucifying us. And the mind will justify many things.
Speaking of the mind justifying many things, shall we turn to Blair and Burnham? Or is there anything else you'd quickly like to tell us on the shadow economy? You're good.
This is massive. Journalists are looking into it now. I've looked into it for some time. The government's looked the other way. It cannot. And this is why you're going to see a crumbling of society if you don't look after it. People have talked about kids storming into shops, shoplifting, stealing with impunity. This is the other side of it. This is businesses now going down that road. But this is a criminal fraternity, right, that is going to take over our country. And remember, Labour knew about the rape gang inquiry. They knew that went into criminal gangs and big criminal sort of, international maybe even rings, and they've done nothing about it. They're looking the other way because the problem for them is too big.
And so on Blair, you mentioned this 5,600 word, this howl of exasperation. What did you make of his arguments in that?
Well, I did smile because although he, as I've said, sowed the seeds of discontent for this country for many of the things, what Blair has always been good at doing, though, is reading the mood of the country. And he has read quite clearly they have shifted considerably from sort of the left-wing politics and Starmer going even further left-wing and Burnham wanting to go left-wing again. He realises the pain of the public, basically what we were talking about there. So he is saying, oh, you've got to win from the centre. It sort of makes me smile that, no, everything's moved across. He's really sort of to the right. I mean, really, some of the things he said, we must do all we possibly can to stop illegal sort of immigration. He could have been talking a la Farage, or he could have been talking sort of Kemi Badenoch there, a real shift across. So it was interesting. I sort of wondered why now? Why had he made this intervention? Is this because he is still passionate for the Labour Party? He sees them having been in the wilderness 14 years. They're going to crash and burn in 2 years. So was he making intervention there? Was he still sort of saying, I'm still the best leader Labour ever had, you know, the only leader of the Labour Party who's won 3 consecutive general elections in a row? So they should sort of listen to him. Or is he touting his wares? You know, he's got the Blair Institute, of which he's saying, oh, come ask me Fridays. I bet you I could sell you some because that company's doing well.
Esther, it's doing very well. I mean, we're talking to the tune of something like $160 million in 2024, I think.
Revenue, turnover.
That is not bad.
So, and then, of course, and he still was very good at getting the media attention. He dropped his sort of report at 2 minutes to 10 to make the 10 o'clock news, to make all the front pages of the papers, to make all the news the next day. And I also think he's possibly saying, because he has intervened at the time of the Makerfield by-election.
Yes.
He's also saying to some of those 65% who voted for Brexit, because he also said in this report, you cannot go back into the EU. It is not how you left it. So he's saying that. So I really think that was a supportive intervention there to try and win that by-election for the Labour Party, because he's probably saying a lot of things there that those people sort of believe and think in, and maybe taken a little bit out of Reform's sort of sales by saying that.
And it did strike me that there wasn't a ringing endorsement for Burnham at all. He kind of seemed to suggest, stick with Starmer.
I think he was saying now is not the right time. There was a couple of things. It's like, well, why change the leader if you don't know what direction you're going in? So I think there was a lot of that. He said it's not about the personality and it's not about your inability to communicate. It's your problem is you don't have a plan. How many times have we heard Kemi Badenoch say that from the dispatch box there? You know, you haven't got a plan, and this is true. So he said that. He also, in a rather sort of underhand, condescending kind of way, said, oh, well, I hope you win and we need you in Parliament. And when you were working for me, you weren't so bad, but obviously you needed the direction of somebody putting you on course. And I think, because I always say this with the real Andy Burnham stand-up, I mean, who is he? He's been a Blairite, he's been a Brownite, he's been a Starmerite, he's been a Corbynista, mad for Manchester Corbynista, wanting to renationalise. But this was the man who actually pushed through private sort of health under the Blair and Brown government there. He actually did the Hitchingbrook procurement deal, and that was the first hospital to be fully privatised. So that's Andy Burnham. So where are you, Andy? Will the real Andy stand up? I mean, I've always said he's like a weaker Starmer.
Do you know what's interesting? I was speaking to some Reform people on the ground in Makerfield this week, or just yesterday actually, and they're saying it's too close to call on the ground. They're feeling quite positive, but they do say that there aren't as many people door knocking for Burnham as they kind of expected, which I think is quite interesting. So maybe Starmer's winning that battle there.
I mean, they'll all have be trumpeting how well they're doing at the moment. It's a start of a battle. Got to get your troops out. We're doing whatever the others aren't doing so well. As I would see it at the moment, I would put Andy Burnham winning. I mean, that's sort of how it feels. I feel that intervention by Blair has probably helped him as well. I think, he is well known in the area, though I have to say it was a fabulous Reform poster, social media poster I saw. And obviously Reform have got a plumber, and they had the picture of their plumber next to Andy Burnham, and it said, "Vote for the plumber, not the drip." And I thought that was fabulous. So that, they're all doing it. Now, what I hear is I could say, I'd say Labour are doing well at the moment. Doesn't mean it's going to continue that way, but that's what I'm hearing on the ground.
And I know our viewers are big fans of Rupert Lowe. He seems to be creating a bit of a buzz there too, especially on Facebook and social media.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, supposedly he's at 6%. I don't know if that's true or not. My only concern, and who knows which way the pieces will fall, the jigsaw, will unfold or what have you. But will the right, by dividing their vote, allow Andy Burnham to win, which is what I fear could happen. So the Conservatives are in there, though it seems minimal, the Conservative vote. It will be sort of a reform, and Restore could knock it off from winning. So what was the point of that? And if Andy Burnham does win and gets into Parliament, he is going to be pretty much anointed and be the Prime Minister of our country. And again, we never knew what Starmer was about, and he became the Prime Minister of our country, and what a disaster. And we're not going to know what Burnham is about, and he's going to be there. So I think that is going to be a failing of the right if they allow that to happen. Though, if Burnham does come in, he does vacate the mayoral position, and I think that will be interesting, because that probably will fall to Reform.
Yeah.
And so what will people think then of Burnham? The Burnham bounce will have fallen flat, because Reform would have taken the sort of morality of Manchester. And will Burnham push us straight into a general election? I don't actually think he's got the guts to do that, to go straight to the King, say, I'm new the Prime Minister, okay, let's go to a general election. I don't think he's got the guts to do that, but he should have.
And his MPs probably wouldn't like that either. But if only we had a crystal ball in front of us.
Well, that's why we're back every week, because all things are defying expectations, and we've gone from a 2-party state to a 5-party state. Social media plays into this. Lots of things are playing into it. But I think, and I'll go back to the pain of the public, saying, I can no longer afford this. My life is much worse under this Labour government. A deluded and out of her depth Chancellor, and that is fundamentally the problem, which basically Tony Blair saw. And he's saying, do you know what? It is at your fingertips. You could solve this problem, and the first one would be energy. Drill, baby, drill, which goes back to Trump, which he said to Starmer from day one. Get your energy prices down. And I'll just give you a little example here. Back in 2000, and this is why I say Blair sowed the seeds of all our problems. In 2000, GDP per capita for America, and here, I don't know, we were 90% of America, so roughly the public felt the same. We've fallen to 60%. So they're much wealthier than us. And energy prices were roughly the same. Now our energy prices are 4 times higher.
And people will be feeling
And that was Blair and Brown and Burnham. And I'm afraid they've learnt nothing. And we're all feeling poorer. And so our sort of podcast has come round in a circle, but you can see why people are slipping into the shadow economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much to our Westminster Whisperer, and thank you so much to you at home. Please do like, share, subscribe, and hit the hype button. We'll be back next week. Bye for now.